What's up, everybody? Welcome. It's an Overreaction Tuesday. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Anwar Richardson. We apologize if the Overreaction Monday show didn't happen as planned yesterday. Chalk that up to technology issues all over the USA. We weren't the only ones affected, but we were the only ones that didn't do a Monday Overreaction show because we couldn't. We're here. Like, comment, subscribe to the page. We do appreciate it. And honestly, if we're being completely honest, I think the Tuesday Overreaction show or the Overreaction Tuesday show may be better this week because we kind of get to break down what happened yesterday in Steve Sarkisian's press conference. Jump into the Specs chat it up with us, leave your comments in the comment section. But Anwar, you and I had a conversation yesterday before the press conference, and it was like, there's a million things to ask. What do you ask? And I think you and I both agreed that there's a million questions that could be asked. You asked the one regarding Sarkisian's role as a play caller. I thought you asked and set everything up wonderfully and in a way that allowed him, I think, to embrace the question and not just shake his head no and say no, like he did elaborate. Now that you had, 22 hours to kind of marinate on what he said, the implications, where we are, where's your head at today, given that it's turned into a national story and kind of the thing that the Longhorn universe and not just Orange Bloods is talking about today?
Yeah, I mean, it's gone pretty huge, right? That whole question and an answer of it. I think, Catch, as I've had more time to see about it, digest on it and everything like that, okay, it's Overreaction Tuesday, so it is what it is. We'll put it.
You got an overreaction to give me?
I think sometimes pride comes before the fall, and I think Steve Sarkisian's pride/ego of wanting to be the play caller at Texas, as opposed to being the CEO of Texas, could be the thing that ultimately. The things that make you strong make you weak. And so I look at it and I'm like, I think Sark looks at it as, if you take this away from me, who am I as a coach? This is my strength. This is my superpower. And it's not, and I think where Sark sometimes is missing a little bit in the conversation, it's not to say that you aren't a good play caller, right? Because that's the thing he threw in at the last part. I think I'm a good play caller, even though, other people aren't. It's more about, maybe some people don't think so. It's more about the job that you have and the hats that you're required to wear. It's much different than you being a play caller at Alabama. It's much different than you being a play caller at USC or anything like that. It's literally kept saying you're a play caller, you're an offensive coordinator, you're kind of pretty much the quarterback coach, and all of due respect to AJ Milwee, but that's 3 jobs. Now we're talking about you're also the head coach. Now we're talking about you're also in charge of NIL. Now we're talking about you got transfer portal. Like, we go down.
He is the best recruiter on staff and is insanely involved on that front.
So you got to recruit your ass off as well. High school kids. Then there's transfer portal. It's not about that. It's just like, hey man, it helps to delegate just a little bit and not be the person that takes on everything. You experience this at Orange Bloods. It's probably your biggest strength, but yet your biggest weakness,
no doubt,
which is you want to take on everything. And sometimes you got to say, I got to delegate to people. And because can I do it all? Sure. But what's a better product at Orange Bloods? Catch doing everything or catch delegating certain things to people? And I think when people catch out, and I'll shut up on this one, I think when people look at examples of how it's worked for others, and they look at him saying, well, I'm not going to do it, there's folks that said, okay, but others are doing it and being successful. Why not choose it? So I think that's the thing. I know it's his baby. You used the Al Green reference. I know it's his baby, right? Which, by the way, how cool was that to talk to Al Green? That sounds so amazing, right?
Hey, when we interviewed him, Memphis had just beaten the Spurs in the playoffs.
Yeah.
The Reverend Al Green came on Austin radio and trash talk Spurs fans. It It was like, you're a Grizzlies fan. Ow! Like, do you know who you're talking to?
It's amazing. And the other thing, and Text Bomb points this out, and the other thing that people are pointing out as relates to the analogy, by the way, Catch, is that, if you are the CEO of a company, you're on sales. I talked to a friend of mine who's VP of sales. He goes, you only sit in on the big meetings, but you don't sit in on every single meeting. It's only the big things, and you delegate to everybody else. So I think Sark looks at it as, you guys are taking away what you would do well, and others are looking at it as, no, it's not. Yes, you can do it well. You've done it well, but how about delegate, and so you can be the CEO as opposed to just being the play caller / OC.
I think we're just in a really interesting time in the history of college football because of Steve Sarkisian's not wrong. When he was hired on essentially the first day of 2021, they hired him in part. The people that made the Steve Sarkisian hire thought there were a lot of similarities between Sarkisian and Tom Herman. They thought he was an upgrade as a play caller and an offensive mind. It is ultimately, I think, there are two reasons why I think he got the job. One, everybody hated Tom. Two, they thought they were getting an upgrade on the offensive play calling standpoint. It is why he was hired. And when he said that to you, it's why I got the job. He's not wrong. And that was only, 4 2/3 years ago. So it wasn't that long ago that's why he was hired. But in that time, the sport is changing at such a rate that, we talk about this in recruiting all the time. Tactics that were good 6 months ago are outdated today.
Yeah.
And you're constantly trying to stay ahead of what is happening in the sport. I can remember when you and I and Sukamel, we were doing modcasts 5-6 years ago. And I can remember bringing up, it's going to be really important. The teams that have the best infrastructure, a general manager, scouting departments. This was before NIL really took off and revenue sharing and everything else. It was like, this is the future. And I can remember we argued as a staff about it. Sukamel just did not believe that this is where this thing was headed. And I was like, no, it is. And I think what Sark's going to have to do, and I'm not telling him that he has to give up play calling, because I think the thing that he's going to struggle with is I think he thinks he's the best play caller in the country. So who do you hire that's better than the guy you think is the best? But something has to give. People ask all the time, Catch, why don't you do the modcast anymore? Why are you off on Tuesdays? And today we're doing a Tuesday show because the Monday show failed. Because the entire staff said, Catch, you got to take a day at some point to do other things. You got to be able to answer email. You got to be able to do sales calls. You got to be able to do meetings. You got to be able to do all of the other things that come with owning Orange Bloods and being the chief decision maker beyond writing content and doing shows. And you're right. It's still something that I struggle with. I always try to do too much. Sarkisian's in a position where he's trying to do too much in front of the world. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what he has to give up. I don't know where he has to decide at the expense of keeping play calling. I'm going to trust the people that I work with to do right by me, and I'm going to give up some of the other heavy lifting that I do. And I think when this season's over and he does an audit of himself and the program, he's going to have to figure out where he makes life easier on himself. Because, and I'll shut up here in a second, but the last point I would make, I'll just go back to the Ohio State playoff game from a year ago. The week of that game, he was juggling 10 million things. The portal, they got guys leaving. You've got recruiting. You've got, they knew that retention was coming up. There's all of these things that they were working on. And if you ask the simple question of, is Steve Sarkisian, the Texas OC, able to commit as much time and energy and resources into being the offensive coordinator as he was able to do at Alabama? The answer is inevitably no. But it's a really important job. And to have a lesser version of yourself because you're strapped so much It is one of the things that he's going to have a reckoning with. He's not been the best version of himself as an OC over these 5 years. He's not been the best version of himself as a quarterback developer in these 5 years. I think he can do better, but I don't know how he can do better if everything that continues to happen. I'm not one of these guys that's like fire Steve Sarkisian. He is an elite. I have come to really respect Steve Sarkisian more over the 5 seasons that we've covered him for a number of different reasons. He is the CEO that Texas needs. It's crazy to think that you could upgrade, I think, the CEO version of Sark. How do you optimize how do you make all of the areas in the program as optimal as possible? Because that's how you're going to win championships. And I think that's a conversation he's going to have. And it's not as simple as, well, just hire a general manager. You and I have had this conversation a million times. I don't need Brandon Harris to lose his job. Brandon Harris is insanely valuable. But it's ludicrous to think that Brandon Harris has A-plus skills at every single thing that he's asked to do. I don't have A-plus skills at everything that I'm asked to do. None of us really do. That is an impossible ask of anyone. And I think that in addition to figuring out where he cedes a little bit of control, he's got to find people that he trusts, people that he lets do their jobs. And when they do their jobs, he takes their words and doesn't micromanage and doesn't say, well, thanks for the advice, but now I'm going to take a look at this and make the decisions myself. He's got to find people in the program that he trusts more than his assistant coaches. Because when you think about how they even got this way offensively, that goes back to ultimately his position coaches told him, we're good. Really, we got this. There wasn't a voice in the office, in the football offices that said, Sark, dude, we've got Neto as the starting left guard going into this season. I don't know if he's A, going to reach the levels that we need, but B, he's definitely not there. Now, can we take that chance? Kyle Flood said, yes, you've got to have outside voices to help you that don't bring the biases and all of the things that come with all the different positions in the program. So I think this is a conversation that includes a million different things. But ultimately, if he's going to keep the OC, then he's got to figure out something else to give up. And consequently, if he comes away thinking, you know what, I can no longer be the OC, then we really do enter a new era of Texas football under Sarkisian, and it will be interesting to see where it goes. But he only has to look at Ryan Day and Lane Kiffin to see this can work. It's okay.
Catch. I'll take it one step further to it. Okay. And let me ask you questions that are going to be probably like somewhat rhetorical, right? Okay. But let me ask you just here. Give you like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Okay? Nick Saban, arguably the greatest college football coach ever.
I don't think it's arguable. Yeah.
Arguably the greatest head coach of all time, but we'll definitely say he's the GOAT. Right?
Yeah,
Living
sure.
GOAT. Okay. Do you think Nick Saban needed Kirby Smart to call plays? Like,
in retrospect, yes. And it goes back further than that. He had Will Muschamp at LSU.
So, but Nick Saban, with as good as he is, could have said, I'm a defensive coordinator. I got a defensive background. Who's going to call plays better than me? Hell, I know I'm damn good at what I do. And the guy who we consider to be the GOAT of college football said, I want to delegate that responsibility to someone else because now I can focus in on all these other things and all these other aspects. The guy who not only is the GOAT is the guy that Sark studied under that he was under his wing. He's part of the coaching tree. And he saw that guy delegate and hand things off to others. But yet when it's his time, it's like, because what Texas wanted more so than anything else, Catch, when they hired him, is that they wanted Alabama at Texas.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted, right? Okay. The hope was Sark learned from Saban. And so we wanted Saban years ago, didn't happen. So we're going to get the prodigy from there, right? And so that's why I think when he takes a step back, when you talk about what it's worked like for a Ryan Day, right, and what that looks like for him, if the GOAT can say it's as good as I think I might be at this job, I think it's going to be better to delegate this to someone else to make myself. If the GOAT can do it, anybody can bury their pride and say, you know what, I'll give the input when necessary, but it's not necessarily to be, I'm going to now have all these jobs on myself. That's why I say sometimes the same things that make you strong can make you weak.
Do you know who had a really strong grasp of this and we mocked him for it? It was Tom Herman.
Oh.
On the day that Tom Herman, it was one of his first press conferences in his very first season, he talked about, I don't know if I can be as good an offensive coordinator as I would need to be because I have these head coach responsibilities and I need to be thinking about a lot. I have to be thinking about the whole team and the game. And at the time, we were like, Tom, you were hired for the same reason Sark thinks he was hired. They thought they were getting somebody that was going to make the offense great every year. Quarterback play was going to be improved because under Charlie had been terrible. And Tom Herman showed up in his first season and was like, guys, it ain't me calling the offense because I don't think I can. And we looked at Lincoln Riley and we were like, Tom, your main competitor is run by a guy who's doing the thing that you say you can't do. But I think Lincoln Riley since then has probably learned it gets harder and harder and harder and harder because he faces the same things. Tom Herman was saying that just from a game day, I don't know that I can focus on the offense and then be also thinking about the context of down and distance and game strategy. And I got to talk with my defensive coordinators if there's an issue there or if I need to talk to a play. He was saying just on game day, I don't know that I can do this job. And I think there were even moments on Saturday, game management questions and issues where I wonder if being the offensive coordinator and so focused on that takes away from everything else. And that doesn't include all of the stuff that we're talking about now that exists. It is an insanely difficult job. What Sark is trying to manage, you can count on a couple of fingers in the entire, in college football and pro football. You can count on a couple of fingers the guys that are trying to do what Sark is doing. The world, his peers, are telling him, this ain't the way, man. It's not. Ryan Day hired Chip Kelly. He won a national championship the year after he gives up the offense. They may win a second one. And you know what? No one is going to forget that Ryan Day was a good offensive coordinator back in the day. What they're going to give him credit for is being selfless. And what they're ultimately going to give him credit for is being a champion. And I think if anything ever motivates Sark to make the change that he clearly, I've said he'll make the change over his dead body or his resignation first. But maybe there's a world where he sits down and listens to somebody and says, dude, why are you better than Ryan Day? What makes you better than Lane Kiffin? Lane Kiffin was an NFL head coach. Lane Kiffin's a guy who's been a coordinator at Alabama. Lane Kiffin's had success in the SEC. Like, Lane Kiffin's beaten Georgia. You know what I mean? Like, there are elements of this where it's like, there are examples of guys that swallow their pride. Pride is one of those 7 deadlies. Don't I know it? And the thing I will say about Sark that maybe I'm not giving him enough credit for, Anwar, in this discussion, is that one of the things I've complimented him over the years over is that Sark will make a mistake and he usually fixes it fast. He's not like Dabo, who will say, I have an opinion on something, and then 5 years later, he's the only guy with that opinion, and he won't give it up, and the rest of the sport is kind of mocking him. I can count to so many situations where I thought Sark, and I'll give you an example. Saturday, as soon as the game was over, I was like, I don't think Sark handled the press conference the way that I would have, and the way I thought he would. In that moment, the best thing he could do is just throw himself on the sword, and anything that gets brought up, it's on me. The offense wasn't good. It's on me. I'm the head coach. The buck stops with me. The players looked confused or whatever. That's on me. I've got to do a better job. On Saturday, he was like, well, yeah, I got to do a better job. But you know what else needs to happen? We need to fall on fumbles. You know what else we need to do? We need to not run out of bounds in key situations. Yesterday, he showed up at the press conference and he was like, you know whose fault the DeAndre Moore thing was? Mine. But this goes back to, are you chewing off too much? Because he stated yesterday he probably didn't communicate to his players well. He was with them on the sidelines before the play. He didn't communicate to them the importance of staying in bounds because of the game situation. Now, either he's a terrible head coach and didn't think, well, you know, that's important to convey to the team, which I don't believe is true, or he was doing a lot of things in that moment. And the most important, they didn't need a yard on that play. They didn't need 5 yards on that play. They didn't need a first down, which they didn't get. They needed that play to end with the clock running. And it's over, and Texas wins in regulation, and that's that. They almost lost the game because of a very simple head coach communication that didn't get there. And again, I think Sark admitted as much yesterday. Sark fell on the sword yesterday. Sark took all the accountability yesterday. In 48 hours, he changed his mind. In 48 hours, he changed his approach. In 48 hours, he was like, you know what? Ketch was right. I read Orange Bloods. That's what I should have done. And he did it. And as soon as he did it, I was like, attaboy, Sark. He has the capacity to change. This is the greatest challenge of all, though, because it is his baby. These other things are easier to give up. They're not his baby. Play calling is like breathing for him. And someone's got to be able to convince him, Sark. I know it sounds difficult, but you still will be able to breathe the day you give up play calling.
I mean, again, to your point, we don't look at Saban any less and say to ourselves, well, he didn't call the plays. We just look at the results. We look at the results and say, well, that's all that matters. No one went into the offseason and said, I mean, it's cool that Ohio State won that, but you know who really called those plays? Chip Kelly. Like that, I mean, it's an asterisk, right? No one says that. They just like Ohio State won, Ryan Day's great, like all those things, right? No one looks at it to that degree, but because it's his baby. But people have taken a step back. That what made, and this is a little bit different of an analogy because it wasn't his baby, but Ed Orgeron, right? LSU. That what made Ed Orgeron catch lightning in the bottle catch when they went out and hired Joe Brady. And they said, hey, man, we just want you to focus in on calling plays. That's just what you got to do. And they end up having one of the best seasons in college football history, especially from an offensive standpoint, because think about the world where you're just focusing on play calling, right? You just think and eat and breathe and live that thing and that thing alone. That's all you're thinking about as an OC, right? It's all you're worried about is that task. But it's not, okay, but I did this. Now I got to go to the defensive meeting. Now I got to go to the special teams meeting. Now I got to check out what this position groups are meeting. Okay, someone else is going to sit down with me. Let's get a recruiting update for these particular guys. Hey, so who's on our transfer portal? What's going on with that? Oh, wait, I got media availabilities. I got to go to that. Wait, so I've got 11 o'clock meeting here. I've got this there. Okay, let's talk about the script for a practice tomorrow, right? I mean, like, catch, this is off the dome. This doesn't include anything else. Like, hey, coach, by the way, we got to sit down with this player. He broke up with his girlfriend and he's crying today. Like, oh, okay, we got to console somebody, right? It's like, hey, coach, this guy's thinking about going in the portal. We got to sit down with him and talk, right? You know, hey, this agent is saying their paycheck didn't clear. What is going on with this, right? And so when he can say like, hey, man, giving this thing up doesn't make me weak. But it'll be like, I think of my world, right? if you were like, hey, Anwar, I need you to cover basketball for me,
It's a
men's
great point.
basketball,
Yeah.
and now I also need you to
There's
cover.
a women's volleyball game tonight. Anwar, can you pick that up for me?
Yeah, I need you to do that. I need you to, so I need you to cover all the sports, right? And now you want me to cover all the sports at UT, responsible for all that. And then every week I'm doing a UT notebook of all. And I'm not, hey, guess what happened across country this week? Like that thing was kind of awesome. And like, not, if I covered every single sport at UT, would I be a good football writer? Probably not.
No, you'd be good, but that's not the bar.
Yeah.
The bar is to be the best. And I think that that's the conversation taking place. It's what's the bar? And Sark, are you hitting your bar?
And can I just say this constructively? And this here, I know people will run back, and this comes back on me, so be it. Okay, but Sark, you can say you're a good play caller, but don't hang your hat on that you are excellent at that job. Okay, like, so if we're fair, you did lose your job in Atlanta, and it was strictly off of play calling. Okay, if I look at Sark, the red zone, I looked it up because someone posted something on Orange Bloods and they posted total offense, right? Well, I decided to look up red zone. Okay, catch. This is the craziest thing.
Oh man.
In 2021, Texas was ranked 4th in the country in red zone conversions. 2021. That's the Casey Thompson year. 2022, they slipped to 19th. In 2023, catch, they were 90th in the country. In 2024, they were 101st in the country. 2025, they went to 90. Right now, they're at 92nd in the country. And you know what's happened in that time frame? More things have been added to the plate of a head coach. More things. Think the last 3 years, if you could think of all the things that have been added to Steve Sarkisian's plate.
You know what's interesting? What did you say they were in 2022?
19th.
Okay, because remember, it was after the 2022 season that he was pissed that they were 19th. And he said, we spent the entire offseason, our number one goal, to get better in the red zone.
Yeah.
And then they fell to, what'd you say?
So in 2023, they were 90th in the country.
So then the next year, after that season, he says the same thing all over again, which is, hey, man, we looked at what we did. The thing we got to do better is we got to get better in the red zone. And I was like, Sark, you said that last year. Okay.
And then in 2024, they went to 101st.
Now, he didn't say this offseason
no,
that the number one thing that they were going to work on was I kept waiting for it. It never happened. But for the third consecutive season, they are among the worst teams in the red zone. We're not even talking about that a whole lot because the problems have compounded themselves kind of all over the field. When you look at last year's a really good example. For the last 5 games of the season, they didn't break 17 points offensively against any of the Power 4 teams they played, right? All different players. You had an NFL quarterback. You had an NFL running back. You had 2 NFL receivers. You had an NFL tight end. You had an NFL left tackle. You had an NFL center. You had an NFL right tackle. Though, to be fair, I don't think Cam's in the NFL right now. Might be on a practice squad. DJ Campbell probably playing the NFL somewhere. So, talk about an offense that had 10, 11 guys in the starting lineup that are Sunday players. Not first-round picks, but these dudes get paychecks to play in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But they couldn't punch it in. And too often last year, it was a red zone issue, right? They would move the ball between the 20s. They'd get into the red zone. You think about the A&M game. That was a 17-0 game. They get inside the red zone a couple of times, and there's the interception. There's another turnover. Suddenly it's a game. And look, they finished it off nicely, but it was a game that probably should have been 31 or 38 instead of 17. And I just, what Saban did, Saban eventually, he won't even be remembered in history for what he did as a defensive coordinator. He was really good. What he became known at, in addition to winning championships, was he was a collector of talent. Like, his defensive coordinators were Will Muschamp and then Kirby Smart. Pretty good. His offensive coordinators, Kiffin and Sark and Bill O'Brien, like, he would go to the NFL. He'd go wherever it took him to get what he thought was an elite guy. And what did we say about Nick? Hey, man, nobody goes out and hires better people than Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Because when you win, they pay attention to everything.
Mm-hmm.
When you lose or you don't quite get over the mountaintop, they nitpick you, and they is us, but like it's the task, it's the job. Why aren't you getting over the mountaintop? And so you get nitpicked, things like the red zone, things like all of these little things in the minutia. The more I think about it, the more Sark surely is going to get there. He has to. There are no examples right now of him doing it his way and somebody else doing it exactly the same way and achieving greatness. No one's doing it. And Sark's not doing it this year. And so, I'm not as down on the rest of this season as a lot of people. I don't think Texas won its last game of the season on Saturday. I don't think the Mississippi State game is a loss automatically. I don't think Vanderbilt's just going to come into town and pulverize them. Texas got to play a lot better, like they do, or it will be their last win. Like, they've got to channel what they put into that. And that was the fear, I think, last week. It's one of the reasons why I thought it would be a closer game than a blowout, was like this team's maturity and its ability to put back-to-back performances together is still a major question mark. I tend to think they'll show up on Saturday and deliver the goods because they're being doubted this week. But if they beat Mississippi State by 20 and go into a bye week and then they're playing Vanderbilt, I don't know what team shows up on
Vanderbilt's before the bye. Back to back.
Okay, that's right. So I think that the point's still the same. I don't know what team shows up. But I think that this is a team that I'm not thinking about the playoffs, but like this is a team that can win every game left on its schedule with maybe the possibility that Georgia's just not doable. I don't know. Like that feels like a real task at this point, and a lot of benefit of the doubt having to be given up. But I look at the Aggies a lot like I look at Oklahoma. That's a team that hasn't played a lot of good teams. Texas really physically dominated them a year ago. I don't know that the personnel is completely different. And the Texas OU game kind of played out kind of like I thought it would in terms of all offseason. I just didn't think Oklahoma was that good. I think A&M is better than OU, but I think A&M is beatable. I think everybody on the schedule is beatable, but Texas is super beatable. Texas is a team now on all of these other teams' schedules where they're like, hey, man, instead of worrying about getting embarrassed, we can go to Austin and win that game and like go into Austin and not play an A-level game and win the game. So, if you had to ask me today what I think this team does, I think they're probably going to go 8-4.
Which is a massive disappointment, by the way.
No, it is. It is. Before the season, we would have called that a disaster. And I won't change my tune on this. And Sark said it yesterday. They are a playoff program. Those were his words.
Yeah.
You want to know what the bar is for success? It's playoffs at a minimum. So in a year where you're a preseason number one, which Sark didn't run from, in a year where you've got Arch Manning in his first year as a starter, expectations are so high, not making the playoffs is an absolute failure. And we're having some of these conversations now. I think some people would like, can you guys just wait until after the season? It's too late by then. Because when the season's over, they've got player retention. They've got the portal. They've got recruiting. They've got junior days. They've got all of the things that he never stops doing. And I don't know. It is a fascinating moment in this history because if he doesn't make a change for next season, and I don't think he will, then what happens in the next 14 months, and this is what I wrote about on Sunday that a lot of people took exception to, but I just said in the next 14 months, there will be a ton of scrutiny over the offense and Sark's work with it. And if it's not going to get better, if it just kind of hovers in the area that it's been in for the last 5 seasons, I think this place gets unruly. And I don't know how Sark would even deal with that. Tom Herman, I don't know. Maybe it's because I just haven't seen Sark in these conditions yet that it's hard for me to know how he'll react. But he was pretty defiant in 2021. Like, they started losing. Sark didn't, I don't think, dare show weakness, dare show that he was a problem, dare show that he was getting anything wrong. He felt like, I've got the way, these players suck, kind of. He wouldn't come out and say that, but, when he has the conversation about his quarterbacks with 2 weeks to go, and he wouldn't give anybody a vote of confidence. I mean, he's saying it without saying it. But he's had his guys now. He's had his quarterbacks now. He's had 2 number 1 overall picks or recruits as back-to-back quarterbacks that represent the last 4 years of offense. I don't know, man. There's so many other things to talk about. But this is the elephant in the room. And I'm so glad that you asked the question, because at least now it's been asked. It hadn't been asked. When you've been at every Sark deal, when's the last time he'd ever even been asked that question? Good, bad, indifferent, just Sark. Your job is hard. Have you ever thought, has he ever been asked that question?
I don't feel that he has.
I don't remember it.
I haven't missed one Sark availability, whether it's a Monday, a Tuesday, off-season stuff, media day, spring meetings. Like, I have not missed one. I don't remember that being asked in 5 years here.
Kind of crazy when you think about it, but I move on. Let's do some super chat.
Yeah, I pinned them all.
I'm going to go highest to lowest. Dartboard for $9.99. Why does Sark insist on trying to force a square peg into a round hole? How about not asking Arch to hold the ball for more than 2.5 seconds? At least Greg Davis at least change schemes based on his players. I mean, Dark, I feel like we've answered some of this. Like, what is the motivating reasons? You probably asked this before we got into it, but like he says, he was hired to do the job. That's what he thinks he was hired to do. Now,
I agree with him though on they probably need to go more tempo. I mean, you can't with this offensive line. I don't think you can have a slow developing play. Like, there's not enough time. There's just, unless you're telling me Arch is missing everything underneath, you probably need to go tempo and just get rid of the ball. Just get rid of it as fast as you can. I'm all for holding up on substitutions to, don't let the defense put somebody fresh out here. The hell we need that for? That probably don't need to substitute as much, especially in the red zone. Just like, hey, just let this thing be. Let's just keep going, because the last thing we need to do is give these guys an opportunity to tee off.
It is, I think in a lot of ways, these next 5 games are more fascinating than the first 7, because what do they do? I think one of the questions when he does his Thursday availability, man, have you seen any of the Nick Brooks film from Saturday night? He's unplayable.
But the thing is, he's not supposed to be out there.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not his fault.
It's not his fault. He's not supposed to be.
It'd be like, it's not quite like putting you or me out there at left guard and then getting mad at us because we can't block, but he should be redshirting.
Yeah.
He should not be on the field. It is only through coaching decisions, some people would say coaching malpractice, that they're in a position where they haven't suffered injuries. It's not that Neto tore his ACL and then Connor Stroh came in and tore a labrum, and then they got – no. The guys they had just weren't good enough, and they finally got to a point where they're like, we can't play these dudes anymore. I at this point don't know what the lesser of 2 evils is or 3 evils are, but I don't think that Nick Brooks cannot keep playing for Nick Brooks.
Yeah.
And at some point, I would love to see Sark, and I'm not saying you need to ask this question because there may be more important questions on Thursday. Maybe I need to jump my ass in and ask a question. But at what point do you look at what's happening at that? We're at a point now where it feels like everybody in the country knows, oh, Texas, left guard's a cluster. I watched the film guy on YouTube, and he's just like, he just kept referring to like the whole, that's just left guard. Like, he's been talking about it all season. It's different players, but the same thing keeps popping up. I don't know how, again, it's not even as, this conversation is not as easy as, well, should Sark be calling plays? Like, that's its own conversation. There are all of these other elements that led to what he's working with on offense that also go into this conversation. Part of how they ended up with the offensive line problems that they have is I just don't believe they have somebody in-house who can be above the fray and say, sorry, I know what Kyle Flood said. We're not, if I can find you somebody better than Neto, we have to take him. Do you agree? Because that's why you brought me in here. And Sark's got the chain of command almost had, because I've said this before, the Dallas Cowboys wouldn't go to their offensive line coach and go, hey, you think we should improve? We think we should improve the offensive line. If the Dallas Cowboys head coach was like, don't, I got this. I'll make these guys come good. Jerry and the rest of the gang would probably be really appreciative of like, hey, man, that guy's dedicated to his job and he wants to make it work. But you know what? We're going to go get somebody in free agency. We're probably going to draft somebody in the first round. Like we got to get more help. And, how Texas walked into the position where they didn't get some of the help that's so apparent now that they needed is it loops into this larger conversation that we're having about there's too many responsibilities on Sark's shoulders and holes emerge in the overall process because of it. And I think there's a million things that I can say that Steve Sarkisian does amazingly, but it's also more than a couple of things that you can look at and go, those areas need improvement. And there are a number of areas that I don't know if they need improvement or not. They're new. Like,
yeah.
I don't know who the capologist is for the team, but that sounds like a job that is not for everybody. Like, it's like my tax guy. I don't need him to play basketball well. I don't need him to be able to solve a Rubik's Cube. What I need him to do is do taxes like crazy.
But you don't need a tax guy who's also driving Uber Eats during the day and doing ride shares and everything like that. And you're like, well, that's my tax guy. You're like, nah, I need this to be your full-time job.
Hey, tax guy, can you write a content piece for me on Orange Bloods this weekend? I mean, I'm paying you. Let's move on from the super chat. Buck Wild for $5 says, if Sark decides that we're right and he needs a true OC this offseason, who should he target and who gets fired to make room for a new coach? It's a good question.
Well, first of all, Buck Wild, just the wording of it, Sark won't do it because he feels like outside pressure. He's not going to be like, you know what? I had a question Honor asked me back in mid-October. I've been thinking about it. Man, no, it's going to be because he has an off-season meeting with, El Taif and Del Conte, right? And he's going to talk about all the things that went right, all the things, and then they're going to say, depending on where you are and how the season ends, well, what are we going to do to make things better, right? It goes, so it's words, it's a little thing, but I just want to say, Buck Wild, those decisions are always made in off-season meetings that the coach will have with the administrators. Now, as far as who he should target is a different question.
Do what Nick Saban. Ask yourself, what would Nick Saban do? He'd go get somebody in the NFL.
Yeah,
he just would, and that person would rebuild their reputation, which is what Sark was trying to do when he went to Alabama after having kind of got run out of town in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, if Sark thinks he's the best play caller in the country at the college level, then the only thing that probably will work, because look, I always lean back on the conversation with Brennan Marion. When Sark was asked in the offseason when Brennan Marion first came to Texas about, hey, Brennan Marion's got the go-go offense and, there's some interesting things that had some success. Would you incorporate any of his stuff into your stuff? And Sark, no, we're good. We're good. I don't know if you know who I am, but we're not going to be running the go-go because I got me. And it might just be that he just doesn't respect anybody at that level. So what he may have to do is go to the NFL and find somebody that goes, that guy's on my level and I can be comfortable with that. I think anything less than that, he were able to go get like a Mike McDaniel, which I'm just throwing that out there because he might be available or not. But like as a guy that's had success, McDaniel's a guy that likes to be vertical. He likes to do a lot of the same concepts, I think, as Sarkisian. I don't know. I think it's going to have to be somebody from the NFL. He is not hiring someone that's the thing. If he hires somebody from college, I'll just think that he's made a yes man hire and that guy won't really be the OC, that guy will be the guy that gets thrown under the bus if the offense doesn't work. But what did we learn about Tom Herman's experience at Texas or even Charlie Strong's? Hey, man, cool. You can have a coordinator on the side of the ball that you're supposed to be an expert in, but if it sucks, it ain't Vance Bedford that ultimately is the guy that we're going to really – like, we'll be mad at Vance, but Vance isn't the guy that was getting paid at the time $5 million a year or whatever Charlie was getting. So, just something to think about. I would say NFL. Jay Lee jumps in and says he has to hire a mentor and then slowly relinquish control. It's not an overnight switch. By the way, are you sure he's the only one calling plays? Yeah, I am.
Yes. There's no yes. 100% yes. Did you? Okay, Jay Lee's such a good guy. I won't even overreact to it. Jay Lee, yes, he's the only one calling. Sark is not going to. We've talked about he likes to have control. Like he's not relinquishing that to anybody at this moment. His defiance in the answer is all you need to know.
Jay, I don't know I know this sounds crazy. I don't know that he has the time. You know who didn't have the time to hire a mentor and develop an OC? Ryan Day.
Yeah.
Because if he didn't have success last year, look, they were almost ready to run his ass out of town after he lost to Michigan and finished the season 10-2.
Yes.
Like he has won and accomplished more than Sarkisian, but it gets old. And I think the problem that Sark will have is that if they go 8-4 this year or miss the playoffs, whatever the record is, man, that's your mulligan. If Texas goes 8-4 this year and they were to go 8-4 next year, I do not know how to handicap how and what happens after that. But it would be 4 out of 6 seasons, including the last 2, where Sark would have won less than 9 games. He would have been 2 seasons in a row where they're not living up to the bar that he says they've established. I mean, I don't think anybody's itching to run. And I think it would be crazy unless you knew that, we're going to go hire, I don't know, Nick Saban. I don't know. You wouldn't even do that now. But I don't think he has the time to mentor someone in that position. What he needs, what this program needs, is for him to stop worrying about all the stuff that goes into being the OC. Like that's ultimately, it's either that or cut back a lot, because what can't happen, because this year the portal doesn't open up in December.
Yes.
This year the portal opens up in January. And in a perfect world, they're literally getting ready for their most important game of the season the week the portal opens up. Tell me how an offensive coordinator is supposed to also be the head coach. Because honestly, from a program standpoint, the thing that Sark would need to be an A+ at better than that, like the most important job task that week's probably not being the offensive coordinator, even though it's the biggest game of the season and it's a critical, like you got to choose your spots. You got to pick your battles. Believe me, I know. And I don't know. I just don't know. Like, I don't know that that's going to work. I think if and when the decision comes, it's going to have to be what Ryan Day did. And that's the best piece of inspiration. You know what Texas may need? Texas may need Ohio State to win a second straight national championship. And when it's over with, everybody can be like, Sark, are you better than Ryan Day? Is that what you're telling us? Because he's got 2 natties now. And he did it with 2 different quarterbacks, one from the transfer, one a 5-star that wasn't ranked as high as yours. What's happening? So I think circumstances, because of what we're seeing this season, I think he could have done this at the beginning of this year. I think the moment to hire somebody that he mentors and slowly relinquishes control, I think that time might be over. Our last super chat, Joshy Manning, $4.99. Thank you, Joshy. I think he needs to give up constructing the offense. Flood as OC and name adds nothing. Well, it helps Kyle Flood have a bigger paycheck.
Yeah.
Which is why he has the title.
Correct. You got to justify it. You got to justify the check with the title, right? So he's got, so you have that, and you pay him enough where he's not going to leave for some, podunk head coaching job at some small school, right? So they come calling. It's like, man, your salary here is more than that. So why would you even go, right? That's all that's about. So
yeah, I think it's why I don't care if they hire a new general manager. Don't get rid of Brandon Harris. That guy's like super valuable. Hire somebody to do some of the tasks that, quite frankly, Brandon Harris is doing too much of. Find out what Brandon Harris does best. Let him do the things that he does best and just focus on those things. Hire somebody with GM skills or whatever. And just call that guy whatever you want to call him. Call him I keep joking about it. Call him the grand poobah of the Texas football program. They give Matthew McConaughey a paycheck and call him the minister of culture. Like, the titles are just things. They're just things. They're just things. Everybody on the staff has a weird title that I don't know actually means anything other than they can make more money because they'll go to the Board of Regents, and the Board of Regents will say, look, for us to justify the raise, we need a title. And he gets a title. So hire some new people. Call them whatever the hell you want to. Anytime I've ever hired somebody, Anwar, they'll ask me, what should I put on a business card? Like, put whatever you want to on a business card. I'm not going to tell you. If Zach wants to put Grand Poobah baseball, hey, man, do whatever makes you happy.
I think I originally put myself down as a columnist because I always wanted to be a columnist, and I was like, I'm a columnist, even though I do a lot of reporting and I write a column once a week. But it didn't matter. I was like, I'm a columnist, and that's who I am. But let me tell you this. I know we're getting close, but the thing that Sark will have to understand, and it's fine if you want this to be, but what Texas fans and what people are seeing at this moment is an offense that seemingly can't walk and chew gum at the same time. And at the end of the day, this is your baby, but your baby is not looking good at this moment. And so when people see an offensive line that cannot block, when they see running backs who are not explosive, when they see wide receivers who themselves, if you remove Sam Houston State, are very pedestrian at this moment, when they see 5-star wide receivers who were signed, but they can't get on the field, right? And then when you see an offense that made Florida look like the second coming of Alabama in their heyday, that had 3 sacks going into that game, and a coach who was about to get fired, and that team rose up and had a hell of a game, and they still fired a coach a couple of weeks later, right? When they see you go on the road versus Kentucky and you can't move the ball offensively. Like, you're struggling in every facet of the game. You get the win, and it's fine. It's fine that the win happens. It ends up being a team thing. At the end of the day, it's people are saying, yes, this offense is not playing well. This offense isn't doing good. And ultimately that falls at your feet, right? Because you want to be all these things. Well, it falls at your feet. And those questions then become that. But to your point, okay, now if you beat Mississippi State, and if you beat Mississippi State, more than likely it's going to be 13-10 or 17-13 or something like that. That's how you beat them. It's not going to be 31 anything, right?
I'll give up in these last 5 games.
Correct. And those other, I think what people are saying, like, you could see where this is trending, that once you start getting against some of these tougher teams, especially these teams ranked in the top 10, the way this offense is playing is going to be tough. They may raise up and beat Mississippi State and act like all is good. And hell, they may have a good defensive performance against Vanderbilt and tell themselves they're back. But at the end of the day, look, when Charlie Strong was hired, and we've said this before, the one thing everyone expected was that defense to be good. And they weren't good. And that ended up being one of the things where it's like, that's supposed to be your area of expertise.
No doubt. Guys, real quick, I just want to say, this video is sponsored by Rogue Shop.
Oh, yeah.
I love those guys. Let me tell you how much I love them. Because Texas was doing their BS with some of the products that you can no longer get your hands on. I was like, hey, man, can I get a care package? You know what Richard did for me? I mean, it doesn't stop on war. It just like
Rick, I haven't seen a care package like that in like a year or two. For
now,
Rick.
I had to ask. I had to ask.
I exist.
I know,
I'm right here by the logo.
Hey, you know what I'll do? I'll send you some of mine. Hey,
no, you can send me some stuff.
No,
Richard, I'm calling you out. Where are you gonna send me some stuff? Why am I buying it?
He may say I gave all that to Catch the Street.
He might be. He might be.
Now, look, I do. Every time my mom asks for a cartridge, I just give her 5 of them, and she goes through them in like a week. Yeah, man. Use the Orange Bloods promo code. Go shopping. Make your life a little bit better. You know what is bothering me?
Can I finish my thought though?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the last thing I want to say is it just so we're clear as when narratives go, Catch, because I know I've been doing this long enough to know what will happen is people are going to say, well, they lost a bunch of offensive linemen to the NFL. Matthew Golden was a first round pick. Gunnar Helm got drafted, right? Jaden Blue, they lost all that, right? But we live in an era as well, Catch, where you don't have to go through a rebuild unless you want to. Like there's no one. You knew that after last season, and this is what you chose to put out there. You felt like you didn't need certain things in the transfer portal. You felt like you were going to be okay. So ultimately, I'm not going to even accept the hey, we lost guys to the NFL thing, because that was the thing they were priding themselves on. Is like, we're losing double-digit guys every year, and look how good we are, right? So ultimately. They had a choice, and they chose to put this thing out here. Right now, they've got to hope that it gets better, because there will be many questions, more questions than answers, if this ends up being 8-4.
By the way, I need to double confirm this, but it's been posted on Orange Bloods. I'm just going to leave you with this as we wrap up. Tua. Let me make sure. Someone was saying that Tua's been benched in Miami and that Quinn Ewers is going to be the starter this week. But I keep looking, and I don't see that being
I see Dove. I see on that thread, this Dove Kleiman person posted it.
I don't see that like being reported by any of the Dolphins guys. So, you know what? Forget I said it. Let's wait. Maybe we'll talk about that at noon if it actually comes to fruition. But I don't think we're far away. I worry about him like I do about Sam, where it's like it's like throwing Nick Brooks in at guard. It's like he ain't ready. It's not like. And what you don't want with Quinn is to put him in there like they did with Sam in Indy. And then what did they do in Indy? They looked at him in 2 games and went, well, that guy's never going to be our starter ever. And it was like, well, no, maybe he could be the starter down the road, but not now. And you can't make judgments not now. But I don't think we're very far away from watching Quinn Ewers take a lot of snaps in Miami. If it ain't this week,
where their season's going. I mean, at some point, the head coach, if I'm the head coach, I'm going to throw the rookie out there and say like, hey, I need some time to develop him, right? I'll throw a Hail Mary. But I don't know. I haven't seen anything that verifies.
I was about to get excited for a second, but it doesn't look like that's officially happened yet. So shame on you, Orange Bloods. Look, guys, we're going to wrap it up because we're at the hour-long mark, and we've got stuff to do, more shows to do, more content, more everything to do. We got a meeting at 11. Guys, like the comment, jump into the comments. Let us know what you think. Like the page, subscribe to it if you haven't. 165,000 we passed over the weekend. Thank you. Thank you. I almost feel bad asking you to subscribe. All of you guys are subscribing. But thanks for watching. For myself and Anwar and the guys over at Rogue Shop and Specs, have a wonderful day. Hey, call someone today that you haven't talked to in a long time and tell them that you love them and that you miss them and that you're thinking about them. Might be the best thing you do all week, especially on a week where feeling stress or Texas football didn't make you happy enough. Maybe that will. Just something to think about. Guys, have a great one. We'll see you soon for the Overreaction 2.